After the start of the Industrial Revolution, human population exploded like nothing we had ever seen before. For example, the North Atlantic garbage patch, more commonly known as Great Britain, exploded from less than 6 million people in 1750 to nearly 70 million people nowadays. This led to fears of an overpopulated planet, a world where resources aren't enough to feed and take care of an ever-growing population. Obviously, this never happened, and instead it seems like we are facing the complete opposite problem. This is Korea, a nation filled with obese gamers that have never felt the touch of a woman, and this is their capital city, Seoul. To keep a stable population, a nation's fertility rate must be around 2.1. In Seoul, the number is 0.55, meaning that for every 2 women in the city, there is only 1 child, which effectively means that the people of Korea have collectively decided that life isn't worth living and they must commit genocide on themselves. But it's not just rich and developed nations struggling with low fertility rates. For example, Turkey is facing a terrible situation. Erdogan's political career has been marked by a number of great successes, such as completely destroying the Turkish economy, eradicating any chances Turkey had of joining the European Union, and achieving the highest inflation rate on the planet. And now he may have achieved the greatest success of his life. He completely crashed the Turkish birth rates. Just 7 years ago, the nation had a very healthy fertility rate of 2.1 and was projected to end the century with a population of roughly 100 million people, making it the most populated nation within Europe, even surpassing Russia. But in recent years, their fertility rate crashed, and nowadays, if you exclude southeastern Turkey, which is predominantly populated by minorities, the nation is projected to have as little as 35 to 45 million people. But this assumes the great mind of Erdogan doesn't come up with any other bright ideas and crashes the birth rates even further. China will lose around 800 million people by the end of the century, Greece nearly 50% of its population, and Italy more than 40%, which is kinda good, cause who wants more Italians in the world? But why? Why are people all across the world choosing to not have children? Do they hate kids so much? Or is it due to outside factors? And the answer to this question is actually very simple. We have no fucking idea. The first thing that usually comes to mind is economics. Due to phenomenal economic management by most of the world's governments the past few years, we've had the privilege of living through the highest levels of inflation seen worldwide in decades. Nowadays, making sure you don't starve to death is pretty difficult, so taking care of kids is completely out of the question. But even though economics definitely play a role, it might not be as significant as you might expect. China and Kazakhstan are basically dumpster fires, and no one would ever want to live in them, while Israel and Malta provide some of the highest quality of life for their citizens. So you would expect the richer nations to have much higher fertility rates, but that is not what happens, and instead the fertility rates are all over the place and don't seem to be following any kind of consistent pattern. But even though economics has a very weak correlation with fertility rates, there do exist 2 other things that seem to influence them a lot more. Firstly is the modern world. The overwhelming majority of people live boring, uninspiring, and depressing lives. They keep social interactions to a minimum and constantly numb themselves with the internet and various forms of instant gratification in an attempt to forget about their sad, pathetic lives. And secondly is our culture. In the past, from the day you were born, your parents and the society around you would put major focus on you acquiring the required skills to have a successful marriage and to properly raise your kids. But the modern world has no interest in that. Instead, you are told and taught to focus on material wealth and acquiring as much of it as possible. There is nothing inherently wrong with that, but as an unintended consequence of it, the overwhelming majority of people lack vital skills for attracting a partner and raising kids in a proper manner. Humanity has chosen to deal with this issue by pretending like the problem doesn't exist and hoping it goes away by itself. And obviously this strategy has been very successful. If by successful, you mean that it failed miserably. Nothing we have ever tried to solve the issue has ever wielded any success. The 2 main ways nations have hoped to raise the fertility rate are by giving parents money or by extending parental leave. What they don't seem to realize is that raising a kid is a multi-decade commitment that will likely cost you tens or even hundreds of thousands of euros, so giving parents an extra 2 or 3 grand is literally doing nothing to help. Anyway, subscribe to the channel and have a great day.